you understand that the music business is just as much business as it is music. So obviously we do it because we're passionate. We do it because we're talented. It's God-given. But if you don't understand the music business or the business of music, as my mentor Paul Miner would say, you could be taken advantage of. And I don't want anyone in 2022 to be taken advantage of when there's so much opportunity and resources and access for us to thrive as independent musicians. Or even if you decide to take a deal, whether it's a publishing deal or a record contract, a record deal, there's no reason for anyone to be taken advantage of today. So if you are here, it is because you want to learn how to make money in the music business. My name is Yudu Gray Jr. I've been in the music business for, at this point, it blends, but I'll say officially, like not working, not having a job, making money only from music for about 15 years. But like most people, I've been making music as long as I can remember, playing the piano, producing, writing. But yeah, for about 15 years, I figured out how to not just survive, but thrive in the music business. My wife and I started 24/7 Artist, this platform, so we could share our strategies, our tips, our advice, but more importantly, bring in friends and peers who are also successful in different segments of the industry to teach as well. This first course that I'm teaching is a snippet or a preview of our actual full curriculum, which will also be free. But I wanted to run through and teach it personally because we felt like just kind of dumping all of this information out there wouldn't be as effective as me walking through it. So again, my wife VEE is in the audience with you guys. You guys can chat with each other. She's kind of going to moderate and keep tabs there. I'm going to run through this and you guys take your notes. And then at the end, we'll open it up for some questions if you have any. But I appreciate you coming. If you're here, that means you're taking your career seriously. It means that you understand that the music business is just as much business as it is music. So obviously we do it because we're passionate. We do it because we're talented. It's God-given. But if you don't understand the music business or the business of music, as my mentor Paul Miner would say, you could be taken advantage of. And I don't want anyone in 2022 to be taken advantage of when there's so much opportunity and resources and access for us to thrive as independent musicians. Or even if you decide to take a deal, whether it's a publishing deal or a record contract, a record deal, there's no reason for anyone to be taken advantage of today. All right, so, we're jumping into the second chapter of this course, which is the making money part. I felt like we felt like it would be important to kind of start there. But the beauty of it is by registering for this, you will get access to everything. And again, it's free. So you'll be able to go through the full curriculum. And we'll speak to that later as well. So as the title of the actual webinar was called, there's 6 ways to make money in the music business. And obviously there's 1,000 different streams of revenue, but we boil it down to 6 ways that money actually can hit your account. Sales and streams, licensing and sync, merchandise sales, performance and ticket sales, brand and sponsor partnerships, and publishing. Right? So those are the 6 ways that money can be made. And I'm going to run through each of those. So again, I hope you're taking notes, and then I'll be able to answer your questions at the end. Oh, sorry. She said, make it bigger. Let's see how I can do that. I don't know. Let's see, I guess I could do it like this. All right. Hopefully that's bigger and better for you guys. All right. So Chapter 2.1 of our Intro to Music Business course covers sales and streams, right? This is probably the most common way that we know about making money in music. And this is just making money anytime someone buys your music or they stream it on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or Google Play. Artists and labels are paid from sales and streams, usually through a distribution company, also called an aggregator. So if you have a TuneCore, a DistroKid, United Masters, now TikTok has their own, SoundCloud has one. Also, Bandcamp is a great one. Anytime you're receiving money from one of those platforms, whether you're an artist or I know some of you in the audience are an independent label, or if you're an independent artist, you really are your own label. You're going to collect money from one of these companies. So, unless you're in a special situation, you're not getting money directly from Spotify. You're not getting money directly from Apple. You're usually going to have that money passed passed through a third party company called an aggregator or a distributor. Right. So the advantage for sales and streams, right? The reason you see these artists who pop on TikTok get these crazy record deals is you can get advances based on what a label or even some aggregators and distributors think you will make from sales and streams. And so artists can kind of use their popularity, their buzz, or their proven history of releases and sales and streams to make to get money from a record label, an agency, a management company, or again, an aggregator sometimes will give you an advance so that you can go record your music, pay for marketing, pay for music videos, pay for anything to promote the music. So again, this is considered a revenue stream because when you get an advance, even though you do have to pay it back, it's basically someone giving you the money up front that you would have gotten had you already put the music out and had 1 million streams or 100 million streams or, sold, 200 records or 2,000 records on iTunes. Right. So one of the common mistakes that artists make, you'll see in this chart is like when you do a label deal, right? So whether it's an independent label or a major label, and you take an advance against your revenue for sales and streams, the label and the artist usually have a percentage split, right? So you hear someone say like an 80-20 split or 90-10. And a lot of times in those scenarios, the label ends up with the largest split. What most artists don't understand, however, is that you recoup or you pay back that advance from your share of the advance. So if you have an 80-20 deal and someone gives you $100,000 advance, right? For every dollar that comes in, they get 80 cents and you get 20 cents, right? And then from your 20 cents, you have to pay them back that $100,000 advance. So you've got to make a lot of money back in total to pay back that $100,000 advance. And then, to overcomplicate it, and this is where I see so many of my artist friends who sign these major deals get messed up, is, when you make a song with multiple people, you're usually splitting that pie. So now you're getting an 80-20 deal. The label gets 80%, you get 20%, but that's assuming you have 100% of the record. If you and a producer are splitting the record, or you're a producer and a writer, or you and multiple people are splitting that record, your 80-20 is from your percentage of whatever all the collaborators are splitting. So 4 people work on a record, like it shows here, and you have 25% of that record. Then of your 25% of that record, the label could get 80% and you could get 20%, right? That's one of the ways I've seen artists kind of get stuck in these long-term deals where, you don't understand that you're going to need billions of streams to make that money back. And then I've also seen labels kind of say, it's 80-20 and the 4 collaborators have to split from your 20%. So now, the label's guaranteed their 80% either way, but now you're only seeing a fraction of the money coming back. So it's just important, if you're banking on sales and streams as a revenue stream, that you understand when you're signing a deal or getting into any kind of deal with any kind of advances and any kind of recoupment or payback, that you understand how that's broken down. Also, what's important to understand is where money is made, right? So again, you're going to use an aggregator or a distribution company to send your music out to Apple and YouTube and Spotify and Google and Amazon and Tidal. And then those companies, once your streams come in and your sales come in, are going to pay the aggregator, and the aggregator is going to send you a check. But all of those platforms, all of those DSPs or digital service providers or digital music providers pay different rates. And so it's important to understand that like YouTube pays the least by far, And Xbox, unfortunately, probably a bad business model for them. They don't even have their platform anymore, but Tidal pays the most, right? So if you're an artist, you would say, man, well, then I'd focus all my energy on Tidal. But the counter to that is there are more people in the world listening to music on YouTube every day. There are fewer people listening on Tidal. And so there's a higher chance of you getting 100 million people to listen to your music on YouTube than it is for you to get 10 million people to listen to your music on Tidal. And so, obviously put your music everywhere, but it's a numbers game. You want to make sure that, like, I've seen artists say, well, Tidal pays more, so I'm going to drive all my fans to Tidal. And, even if they have 50,000 followers on Instagram, the reality of it is how many of those followers have a Tidal account, have a paid Tidal account that can pay out the royalty rate that, puts them in a position to make the money they're expecting. Whereas they may neglect YouTube, but they don't understand that there's probably, 500 million people on YouTube who would have pressed play had they just put a little bit more energy into driving, their attention there. So again, what I look at now is like, okay, so we know that you can get an advance, right? That's a royalty type from sales and streams. And we know that the music is put out on all these platforms, and all these platforms are going to pay different amounts. And then those different amounts that come in, whether you're paying back in advance or they're coming directly to you, is all going to be categorized as sales and streams. So now I'm going to talk about like costs associated with that, right? So producer and songwriting fees are usually a direct cost as I look at sales and streams. So if I'm writing a business plan and I'm, saying, all right, well, I think I can get $100,000 this year from sales and streams because I've done the calculation and I think I can get this many people to stream. What you want to make sure you understand is like, what's the cost to get the music out there? If you're one of those multi-talented, super creative people who can, go in a room, home studio setup, create, record, mix, master, do your artwork, put it out yourself and hit those numbers, you've hit the jackpot. But the reality of it is a lot of us need help. So if you're paying for songwriting help, or if you're paying for producer fees, especially if you're paying like bigger producers so you can get the buzz, so you can get the eyes and the ears and the attention, just make sure you take that into consideration. Far too often I see people, putting together these like great rollouts and having all these people tied to it, but not have any money left because they spent all of their money getting the right songwriters and producers on these massive songs, but they're never going to see the return or the recoupment. So just kind of like, that's a big one. I think like it's cool. And obviously if you can get a big name artist to be a part of what you're doing, or a big name producer, a big name feature, do it, but just make sure the business makes sense. And then the music business segment, for songwriter fees and producers. So it's not common for songwriters and producers to own the master, right? And so when you hear the word master, as we talk about sales and streams, and we'll get into publishing, which is the other side of it. But the master recording is basically when I press play and I hear your song, that's the master recording. As opposed to like if someone else did a cover of your song, that's not a master of your song. That's a cover or a duplicate, right? So that's the idea of like the master recording is like the actual original recording that when I press play, it's a song that you intended for me to hear. That's on Apple, that's on Google, that's on whatever, right? So when you're doing agreements with your songwriter and producer friends who you're collaborating with, in a modern day era, I've seen people now split shares and split ownership of the master with songwriters and producers. I've seen some people just pay them out a fee up front so they don't have to chase them around and like have to deal with that. But again, like just make sure you can broker a deal with a songwriter or producer or feature artist to where they own a piece of the master and you may not pay them anything or as much up front, or they don't own any of the master and you pay them a fee and you don't have to pay them from your sales and streams. So that is the sales and streams of the music business, right? That's the first revenue stream. It's the one that most of us know about. It's the one that's probably the easiest to understand because you basically upload your music to TuneCore or United Masters or STEM or whoever, DistroKid, and every 3 months, or 3 months later, you're going to get a check. And then every month after that, you're going to get a check or a deposit or, an ACH transfer to your bank account for how many sales or streams you've garnished or you've received. All right, publishing. So On the other side of sales and streams is publishing. And the publishing copyright provides you the ability to make money from the lyrics or the musical composition of a song, right? So if sales and streams is you getting paid for someone pressing play and listening to the master recording, then publishing is you getting paid for someone using the lyrics and or the musical composition of the song. And one of the things that confuses a lot of folks is that, the publishing isn't just for, licensing and TV and film, but it's also like you get a publishing check from your music being on Spotify and Apple because the lyrics and composition are being used on that platform. So we'll walk through that. So again, what is publishing? So you've heard it over and over again. Music publishing covers the copyrights and royalties associated with the lyrics and composition of the song. So just imagine, the music industry's over 100 years old, the industry. And when it first started, when someone wanted to learn someone else's song, they would get the sheet music and they would take that, go buy that, take it home. And let's say you played the guitar or the piano, you would take the sheet music of your favorite song and you go learn it. And so the writer of that song would basically get paid for every sale of the sheet music, right? So that idea of like publishing was like, all right, you made a song, you wrote the lyrics, you wrote the music, and then someone bought it. And, just think of like a church hymnal. If you go to church, like when you open a church hymnal and you see like the notes and you see the songs, like those are publishings of musical works in a written form. And that's what publishing covers. And so you fast forward 100 plus years later, we're still using those terms in today. But like technically when you're producing at home, whether you use FL Studio or Ableton or whatever, you're composing, you're making, music that can be transcribed into sheet music. And obviously when you're writing lyrics, whether you're a rapper, whether you're a singer, you're also writing lyrics that can be remade. And so publishing covers the copyright, right? The ability to collect, to protect and collect on the lyrics and the composition. And composition, again, is just think about it as like someone writing out the music of a song. Hopefully that answers that, because I get that question a lot. So when a writer, producer creates a song, a copyright is created that has the ability to make money whenever the song is purchased or played, right? So I'm going to say that twice. When a writer or producer creates a song, a copyright is created that has the ability to make money whenever the song is purchased or played. So in the modern day where there are now more artists who are writing their own music, producing their own music, and kind of like an all-in-one like savant, like I know so many young, talented, and not young, but just talented creators who have the ability, like, again, home studio, give them a mic, give them a MIDI control, and they can make a record and put it out. A lot of them leave money on the table because they don't have their publishing set up. If there's a copyright that's created the second your song is created that has the ability to make money when the song is purchased or played, set up your publishing, right? Like that's so important because you're just leaving free money on the table. And you don't want to have to go chase that money if your record takes off. And in today's age where the right TikTok or right IG reel could like make your song go like this, you'd rather have all your ducks in a row than to be scrambling trying to figure it out afterwards. And we'll help with that. Like that's why we built this company. So what does a publisher do, right? So within publishing, you hear the word publisher or like a publishing deal with a publisher. So a publisher really does four core things, right? They register your songs, right? So when your song is made, they have to actually register it so it can make money. They license your song, so they're responsible for getting your song out there on TV or in film or in video games. Like they use their relationships and their pull to try to get placements, and those placements allow you to make money. They're responsible for the collection of royalties. Again, in 2022, it's a lot easier and simpler to collect money globally now. But you've got to think like 50 years ago, like imagine when, the Beatles or Michael Jackson had a massive record, the Jackson 5 had a massive record, Stevie Wonder had a massive record. How did they know where to go collect the money from? How did they know like where the song was played or purchased? So a publisher was really important because they were doing a lot of that work manually. Today, a lot of that's digital, and in the future, it's all going to be digital. But a publisher is responsible for that. And then the fourth one, create creative opportunities. This one is unique, right? So when you're signing a publishing deal, Beyond an advance, which we'll speak about in a little bit, one of the best things about a publishing deal with the right publishing deal is they can put you in the right rooms, right? So again, if you sign a massive publishing deal with a Sony or a Warner or a Universal, there's a higher chance you're going to get in a room with other artists signed to Sony, Warner, and Universal. A lot of times those are the biggest artists, biggest producers, biggest musicians in the world. So a bigger publisher, especially if they give you an advance, they're incentivized to put you in the room with other people that they know will make successful records. But there are smaller independent publishers who also have great relationships that can get you in these amazing rooms as well. So that number 4 one is something overlooked beyond getting a fat check or beyond, not having to deal with the registration or collecting of money. One of the nice things about having a publisher is them being able to send you a text or email saying, hey, this artist or this person's working in the studio. Are you available to send them records, or are you available to pull up? All right. So, when we talk about registering songs, if you've heard of ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, or overseas PRS, SOCAN, or JazzRack, these are performance rights organizations, PROs. And a PRO is who receives reports from TV and radio and venues and digital streaming platforms like Apple and Spotify anytime the song is used or played. And so your publisher works directly with a PRO to collect the money and then pay you out as a writer. But before the song is released, the publisher has to upload certain information that allows the PRO and TV, radio, venues, digital streaming platforms to basically enter in when the song has been used. Again, a lot of this is old technology that's catching up, and it's why we're so excited about where technology is taking the music industry, because this model was built when they had to manually fax information out. So imagine radio stations would play songs and they'd have cue sheets, and then someone's job at the radio was to write out basically every song that was played, how long it was played, when it was played, who it was played by, and then they would fax that over to the PRO. And the PRO would receive this document, and they'd have to manually go through and enter this information in, and then they would break down the cost, and there'd be a fee associated with that the radio would pay. It's very cumbersome back in the day. Again, with where the world is heading, all of that should be instant. The second a song is played, you should be getting paid, and that's where it's going. But either way, that doesn't work if you don't register your songs. So again, you want to register with a PRO, so ASCAP or BMI. If you're independent right now, you want to register as a writer, and you want to register as a publishing company. And we have a course just on that. We have one that we're doing with ASCAP, and we have one that we're doing with BMI. All right. So what does a publisher do? So a publisher collects fees to issue licenses for songs. This allows the PROs to collect every time the song is used. So a mechanical license, right? So there's two kind of licenses we'll speak about within publishing. A mechanical license is a license to use a song or composition for CD, vinyl, digital downloads, ringtones, or streamed on interactive platforms, right? So an interactive platform is a fancy way of saying if you can select the song, right? So if you have Apple Music, you can go to any song in the Apple Music catalog, press play, and it will play. You can put any playlist together in any order, press play, and it'll play those songs in those orders. So there's a license required for Apple to even allow you to do that, called a mechanical license. And every time you play that song, Apple Music has to pay out a mechanical license to the publishers through their PRO for the playing of your song. That's why, again, I say so many artists are leaving money on the table, because they'll do the work of creating the record. They'll do the work of putting it on an aggregator or distributor and sending it out to the world. They'll promote it. They'll run ads. They'll do all of this, but they won't have a PRO registered. They won't have a publishing company. They won't have their songs registered, and they're just leaving money on the table. And after a certain amount of years, if that money's not collected, it goes into what's called a black box, and it's just distributed out to ultimately the big three: Sony, Warner, Universal. Just get a check for random people who haven't properly collected or registered their songs. All right. And then a sync license is a license to use a song or composition in TV, film, radio, or non-interactive platforms. So a non-interactive platform is like a Pandora, right? So Pandora, you say, I want to listen to Bob Marley. radio, and it will play songs that it selects. You don't get to select a song. And so there's basically a lower fee for Pandora because you're not selecting the song and playing it. They're playing it almost like radio. Right? So a publisher collects royalties for songs in their catalog. So again, when you sign with a publisher, or if you start your own publishing company, you will collect every time a song in your catalog is played or used in TV, film, radio, video game, interactive, non-interactive platforms, right? So the royalty is paid out to the songwriters. So if you have your own publishing company and you're an independent artist, you're basically your own publishing company and you're your own writer. And you would collect money through your publishing company on BMI or ASCAP or CSAC. And then you would pay yourself out as a writer. So just think about it like, Gray Music Publishing is my publishing company, but the writer would be Yudu Gray Jr., right? Like the writer would never be my artist name. The writer is not an alias. The writer is the person, the actual human being who wrote the music. And so the easiest way, I wish I had a record here, the easiest way to show you that is like if you look at the back of an album or a record, they don't really make those as much, but for those of us who did look at those, you'd always see, like, for example, Jay-Z, it's always going to say S. Carter in the publishing section. It doesn't say Jay-Z because S. Carter or Sean Carter is the writer. Jay-Z's the artist, but the person that wrote the record for Jay-Z was S. Carter. Or B. Knowles, right? Beyonce Knowles is the writer. Beyonce's the artist, but B. Knowles is the writer. So again, if you are an independent artist and you don't have this set up, you want to write this down. You're going to have to set up a publishing company on a PRO, and then you're going to have to register as a writer. So you're basically registering or setting up two different things on one PRO that'll be linked, and then your publishing company will collect royalties and pay out your writer, who is you as an individual. All right, so now we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit. But we're going to talk about the mechanical royalty. So a royalty is paid to the songwriter whenever a copy of a song is sold, right? And so there's statutes or rates associated with this, right? Usually percentages of royalties. And nowadays with like streaming royalties and rates being as low as they are, they're fractional. It's like fractions of a fraction of a fraction of a penny. But it does add up. Again, I've had people have songs go viral or know people who have songs go viral on TikTok or go viral and then like chart and then get like, real numbers, and those publishing checks are real. So as a songwriter, whether you're writing your own song, whether you're a producer on a song, whether you're writing for other people, registering the music puts you in a position to collect whatever the amount is, fractional or not. Right. And in those creative opportunities. So again, a publisher connects writers and songs with opportunities to place music within non-interactive content, video games, movies, creating with other artists, TV shows, advertisements, right? The advertisements one to me now is like songs that brands are using on Instagram. That's something that, like, if you're an independent artist, like you could get a quick check for a local brand that's running an ad and needs music. Like that's something you could broker yourself if you have your publishing in place. These are templates that can be used. You can go to a local coffee house, or you can work with like a local filmmaker and say, look, if you're working on a campaign, you can use my song for $1,000, right? Like that's just straight money going into your account for a song that could be 10, 15 years old or brand new, and extra attention and eyes on it is a great marketing plan. So, don't overlook the power of like having your paperwork together in the publishing space. All right. And then similar to the record contract, when you have multiple writers and producers on a song, you're splitting publishing. So, even when a song goes viral or you have a massive record, if you didn't create the record by yourself, if you had co-writers, co-producers, you might, give your engineer some publishing because they're helping with the creation or production of the song. Your share of that publishing split is what you're collecting on. So, the publishing world's a lot, I think, more streamlined as far as once you register the song, if you have 10% of the song, you will receive 10% of the publishing through your PRO and through your publishing company. So, again, just when you're doing the math and you're creating a business plan, or you're thinking of like making this a full-time career, just understanding that like a lot of times we got to split those ideas we have. Oh man, if I had 1 million streams, I'd make $5,000. It's like, yes, but if two other people on a record, you actually aren't making $5,000. You might make $1,600 or $1,200. So like, it's just important to understand, like, a lot of times we're carving, but would you rather a smaller piece of a big pie or a big piece of a smaller pie? And that's not a trick question. That's preference. Right. And so just wanted to throw examples of like publishing deals, and I really look forward to like our publishing class, like where we'll like dive deep, because we'll go into like these in detail. But you can do an administration only deal. So an administration deal, their commission, they normally just collect a percentage, or they may even have like a flat rate that they receive. They don't pay out advances usually. And they usually are limited in like offering creative opportunities, because again, they're not making a lot of money from the deal. So these are usually companies that are more tech based, or really good at like accounting. They're not really super creative companies. You can do an admin deal with like Universal or Warner, but that's a unique situation. Then you have independent publishers like Cobalt. They usually take like a 10 to 25% commission. So again, you're doing like a 90-10 or 75-25 deal, where you're getting, 75, they're getting 25. They usually do advances in cash and creative stipend. So a creative stipend, if you ever hear that word, is like they'll pay for the studio time from a budget, but you don't get the cash. So you'll book the studio and they'll pay the invoice, and they'll give you a budget for that. They'll say, we have $100,000 creative fund. And in that way, when you sign a deal, if you want to use a studio and the studio is $100 an hour, you can do the math, how many hours of studio time or engineering time or co-production or writing or features or whatever it is you need for the records that they're a partner in, what will cost. And then sometimes with the Cobalt, again, obviously they have a growing roster. You can access their roster of writers and producers and engineers to kind of build your sound and build your catalog. And then obviously the major publishing deal, which is what most people know about, they usually take 25 to 100%. That's a big range, but they usually give larger advances. And the bigger the advance, the more they're taking. And they provide both creative services, access to other musicians, producers on their rosters. Again, remember, these are the 3 biggest film companies in the world. So they also offer, opportunities to create records for films. And then that's how you get the Oscar looks, so it's like when you see Billie Eilish and Beyonce battling for the Oscar of the year for song, of the year, and they're for these major films, just look at like the film company behind the movie, and then look at the publishing company that those artists are on. And I'd say like 90% of the time it's the same. It's Sony, it's Universal, it's Warner. So, it's when I see artists say, man, my goal or my vision board is to get, the Oscar for Song of the Year. I want them to understand that like the pathway to that usually means you have to end up with the major publishing deal, because that's usually allocated. Those major films that get the major marketing dollars and the major looks are usually going to be Sony, Warner, Universal films. Could you be a Cobalt published artist and do it? Or could you be an independent with an administrator and do it? Probably. Or there's a chance. But, I think if we were to look at the history, you would see that Sony, Warner, and Universal artists probably dominate those fields. So you just got to be realistic like anything. All right. So we're the rest of these aren't as long, because it's now getting a lot less complex. But licensing and sync. So with licensing and sync, so a license is granted for the use of a song or composition for a visual piece of work. And so what you'll see now is like, once you understand sales and streams, so you understand you're making money from the use of your song on like a streaming platform. Once you understand publishing, which is, publishing copyright, which protects, the composition and the lyrics, and you're getting paid for that. The act of licensing and sync, right? The reason we bucket this alone is it takes a different skill set than the other two. Even though it can be tied to those, licensing and sync is specifically when you are getting your work put in TV, film, video games, right? So even though you will collect a publishing check when that happens, even though it's going to increase your sales and streams when that happens, the act of pitching and receiving a check every time your song is used is different than collecting money for the play of it, right? And I want to make sure I say that right. When your song is licensed, you can receive a check up front for the use of your work, not in advance for your publishing, not in advance for streaming, but someone's paying you just for the right to use your work. And those checks can be 6-figure checks, 7-figure checks sometimes, depending on the scope of work. So, for example, if a massive film franchise like Fast and the Furious is going to make your song the lead song for their next film, and they know it's about to be a massive multi-million-dollar film, you may get a $1 million licensing fee for the use of one of your songs because they know the value of that song and they want to make sure like they lock that in. Versus like if somebody's like, hey, I want to use your song for my, Instagram ad. I'm an upcoming, fashion person and I only have $150. Don't knock that $150. Someone's giving you $150 to just use your song on an Instagram ad. Like that's still money. And it's the same process just about at the $150 level as it is at the $1 million level. So I'm not going to dive into this because this is actually a course within itself. But again, when we look at licensing in sync, there's different kind of licenses and different kind of like rights associated with it and who gets paid and how they get paid. And again, like we don't have the time for that in this course. You will have access to this course. And obviously as a part of the community, you will have access to ask questions and like submit questions. But just know it boils down to this. If you register your records on a PRO through your publishing company, you've done 90% of the work. Like you've done more than 99% of the artists who haven't done that, right? And then once you're in that situation, then finding either a good licensing, agent or a good publisher, independent or major publisher who has the relationships to broker these deals is going to be key. If you're the kind of person who likes kind of like selling and pitching and following up on emails and chasing, then this could be something that you could enjoy doing. If you're not the kind of person that cares about that and doesn't really want to do that, then you're going to want to find someone, whether it's a sync agent, a licensing agent, or a publisher to put you in a position to license your works. Right. And so when a song is licensed, remember we talked about, the two sides, the master and the publishing. When a song is licensed, both the master and the publishing has to get cleared. So this is the beauty of being an independent artist. If you own the master and your publishing, you get paid twice because they will pay a fee up front for both. I'll give you a personal example of this. I just recorded or I just produced a record for an artist or for a group. And we sampled a 1978, 1977 record, and we had to clear the record before we could release it. When we went to clear it, we had to clear the master with the label, and we had to clear the publishing with the publisher. Both had two very different fees. One fee was like $7,500, and one fee was $2,500. So that's $10,000 that's paid out to clear this record. That's two different fees. So now imagine in 2022 as an independent artist, if you're writing and producing and creating your own music, if you own the master and you own the publishing, you can dictate your fees on both. And it's really two separate entities. So when someone goes to clear the works, they can say, okay, to clear the master, the use of the actual song, I'm going to charge you $1,500. And to clear the publishing, I'm going to charge you $2,500, right? And that's both revenue streams hitting. So it's why, again, registering your songs is so important because if you don't register your songs, you're not even in a position to do this. Right. So a great example of this personally, again. So Shade, one of the bands we worked with, I love Shade. Hopefully they get to see this. Recorded a song at our studio years ago. And the song got picked up by Apple for an Apple ad. The song was, I don't know, maybe 1.5 years, 2 years old by the time it got picked up for the Apple ad. When it got picked up that week, it was the #1 song on Shazam. It hit top 25 song of the year on NPR and a bunch of other places, 500 million plus streams, and they got a gold record for it. fact, I should probably reach out to them for my gold because I feel like I should get a piece of that gold. But no, all jokes aside, like that wasn't a new record. Apple picked up an old record that just fit their campaign. Whoever at Apple heard the song and said, I think this works. And that took that record, to a whole nother place. And the beauty of these revenue streams, anytime you activate one, it brings everything else up, is the success of that record being licensed and then the sales and streams going up allowed them then to tour, around the world. So like an old record, and again, old is relative, but in 2020, 2021, whatever it was, like a record that comes out and is picked up a year and a half, 2 years later, makes that record pop, allows your streaming numbers to go crazy, which allows you to generate revenue there, sets you up to go on tour, which allows you to sell merch. It's like, it's a snowball effect. So that's just like a personal, like I saw with my own eyes, like the power of the right placement at the right time. But again, Shade had their publishing in place. They had all their songs registered. Their business was intact. So when the opportunity came, they were good to go. And then just imagine catalogs like Motown. So the reason when we watch some of our favorite movies, even today, you still hear Stevie Wonder songs, or you still hear, these classic songs from the 70s being used in these films in the 2020s, is because those songs are registered and are like solidified and they know they work. There's no headache. So if I'm making a film, A, I know everybody knows the music, but B, I know the music is registered. Like I don't have to worry about it. And a lot of music supervisors just don't want to deal with like maybe music. They don't want to reach out to random independent artists who may not have their song registered properly, or may not have credited the right songwriter, or may not have their collaborators listed properly. So that's one of the reasons, I really push artists to like make sure your stuff is together, because once you're in the door, once these music supervisors, and the music supervisor is the person responsible for picking the music for a TV show or film, once these supervisors are hip and they're good and you're in the system, they'll reuse your music over and over again as they can. All right. So again, ownership. So this is the big, I put this out there because it's really important. If you sell or give up your publishing, you will not receive future income from licensing, sync, or publishing deals. Do not give up your publishing if you don't have to. And the reason I say if you don't have to is like, I don't want to be here saying like I'm anti-deals. Like that's not what this is about. But like I see too many people giving up 100% of their publishing for pennies, right? For, a couple $100,000 and never see a dollar back, never see an extra dollar. And then I see their songs used over and over again, making millions as years pass. So early on, when you're negotiating your deal, when you're new and a relationship's new and they're courting you, whoever they are, whether it's an independent, an admin, or a major in this case, who's more likely going to try to get 100% of your publishing, don't give up your publishing. All right. Performance and ticket sales. So obviously we know what performing is, right? Like, if you're an artist, and then that's, one of the old adages is like the music business, like touring is where you make the money. This was true because most artists didn't understand the publishing. They didn't understand the master copyright. They didn't understand the record contracts. So once they had been taken advantage of in those arenas, it's kind of easy when you show up, you record, and they give you a check at the end of the night. That's an easy model. So most artists are very comfortable here. But artists at every level have the ability to make consistent money performing. I've seen this personally. I've done it personally. When I say done it, I'm not on stage, but I've put together shows at every level. And I can promise you, you don't need millions or even hundreds of thousands of streams to book a show. Right. So performance and ticket sales. So whether it's a private gig, corporate gig, whether it's a small venue, a bar or restaurant, whether it's a mid to large venue, whether that's like, a 500 person, 600 person venue to like, 2,000 person venue, whether it's music festivals or with all that's happened in the world, whether it's a digital performance. So like, Colors Studio has like a really good, I think, digital performance. NPR Tiny Desk is an example of like a digital performance. And a lot of, pop-up digital performance series exist now. There's so many ways to get paid to make money, just performing. And if you're talented and you're doing music, it feels like, why not? Right. So the key players in this are agents, right? So an agent will find and book shows for talent in exchange for a commission of the gross revenue. So usually, you find an agent may get 10%. If your booking fee is $1,000, every time they book, they get $100, you get $900. and then a tour manager, right? So a tour manager or road manager, usually responsible for routing tour or shows. They're usually responsible for collecting payment, so they're the bad guy at the venue. From promoters are the local people responsible for like getting people in the door or the venue, the space. And they're responsible for paying out the artists, the band, the crew, anybody who is working the show. So, as you're putting together your team, if you're thinking, man, I think I could probably get off this call and like start looking at performing, the two pieces you want to start figuring out early are an agent, getting someone to find you shows, book you shows, and in exchange get a commission, and a tour manager or road manager who's responsible basically to run anything responsible or anything related to a show. Right. So again, promoters. So they are, we call them talent buyers or promoters. They're responsible for basically packing out the venue. They're responsible in the city, right? So if you go on tour, let's say you go to a city you're not from, like I'm in Atlanta right now. If I was an artist and I was going to Chicago, I don't really know anyone in Chicago. I think I have fans in Chicago. The promoter's job is to say, I know this artist will sell well in Chicago. I have an email list. I have a list of people who come to shows like this. I think I can get however many people to come and see this artist perform. And the venue usually works with promoters or talent buyers. They kind of a blend now to find up and coming talent or talent that will fit that venue. Right, rock venues want rock talent. Hip hop venues want hip hop talent. R&B venues want R&B talent. Again, it's kind of blending now, but a promoter usually finds a niche and they book talent in their niche. And then roadies usually are, basically assistants. They're people that carry equipment. They make sure the artist is good. They make sure the manager is good. They everything from security to golfers to, therapists. They're everything on the road. So, I've definitely been a roadie on the road. It's a part of, I think, a rite of passage if you're in that space, if you're in a touring or performing space, because you get to see a little bit of all of it. Right. And then obviously the artists. So the artists and the teams usually pay their dues early. We did a lot of free shows. You're going to do those. I look at it as marketing. Early on, you do free shows. You get your chops up. You get your set down. You get comfortable holding a microphone. You get comfortable singing. You get comfortable getting booed. You get comfortable singing in front of people who don't really know you, especially if you're opening in front of a bigger artist and they're not there for you. But that makes you better when it's your turn. It's also a great way to grow your fan base. So, when you're putting together your performance, obviously everybody goes to, I want to perform in front of the biggest venue, biggest stage, biggest audience, but start where you are and start comfortably and start confident. And then, an artist writer. So I think I have an example of that in this, but basically you want to create a contract or a list of specifications needed. That goes from everything technical. So that could be like, I have keyboards, mics, guitars, drums, and I need this, right? It could be food. I'm vegan. I only drink sparkling water. I only eat red M&Ms. It could be candles, like, so an artist writer, especially the bigger or the more established the artist, for me to come to your venue and be comfortable, I need these things. But start that early, even though you don't have the diva luxury early. Start early with what you need, and that list will grow with you. Right. And so a technical writer is what I just spoke about. Instruments, number of inputs, type of equipment. If you're bringing your equipment or if the venue's providing equipment, all of that's important. And hospitality writer, again, is food, drinks, candles, colors, TV, video game systems. I've seen it all. All right. And then there's so many great tools. We're actually putting together a series around just performing and touring. And I'm going to bring in people from a lot of these companies, the ones at least I have relationships with, just to talk about like how to use their tools. Like Eventbrite's a great tool to use to sell tickets, right? They take a percentage, but it's free to use, right? Airbnb, I know for a while they were doing partnerships. Obviously YouTube, Zoom, what we're using now. StreamYard, and then there's companies like Ticket Leap that make like interactive ticketing and obviously social media. You can do live shows on TikTok and like get fans to buy badges. So like there's so many tools that exist that like there's no excuse for anyone out there to say they can't do it. Even what I'm doing right now could technically be considered a performance, even though I'm not making beats or anything. And then this is an example of one of our technical writers. So again, this is just like a list of the equipment that we use. We kind of map it out as we're on stage, and then we list out basically the inputs. So, how many mics we need, what kind of instrument is mic'd, and we number it so that we're communicating with the venue with the same numbers. So we can say, turn down the mic or turn up the kick or turn down the snare, and we're all speaking the same language. Took us a while to get to this point. This is, we'll have a template for this, but this is just an example of a tech writer. All right, and we're almost done, and then we'll get to the Q&A. I appreciate you guys for hanging in there. I know this is a lot of information, but hopefully it's helpful for you guys. All right, so merchandise and product sales. This one is pretty simple, right? So obviously artists can sell their own merch, or you can work with an established brand and kind of do a partnership. You see Adidas and Beyonce collaborations are, the bigger version of that, but you could work with a local, fashion designer, and do a collaboration around the release of your music, and like have them do what they do best and make the merch and market it. And then you just do a profit share and like promote it. Obviously with the creation of online stores and point of sale systems like the Square app and the Tap app, like anyone can set up a fashion store, merchandise store, product store anywhere, whether it's online or in person, which is what a time to be an artist. This did not exist 15 years ago. So obviously in steps, again, this is going to be its own course, our own set of courses. We actually are working with, I can't announce it yet because we haven't finalized it, but we're working with somebody in a space who's made millions of dollars, who is like down to earth. I've known them for over 12 years. And they're going to come and give us all their gems on how they build a multi-million-dollar fashion business. But again, some of the steps for merchandising, obviously, so design, there's marketing, there's sales, right? So making sure people sell it or buy it. And then there's fulfillment, which is once the order has been put in, how do I get it from idea to your doorstep? Right. So again, I spoke about the Beyonce, Ivy Park, Adidas collaboration, right? So Beyonce gets the infrastructure and product specialists of Adidas, and Adidas gets one of the biggest stars, artists, brands in the world promoting their products. But this can be duplicated at every level. And it's something I don't see enough artists doing. Like there's so many, it's like there's these two pieces, right? There's the artist who knows that they have a fan base, whether that fan base is 100 people or thousands of people. And there's a fashion designer who's like, man, I'm really good at design, but I don't know how to reach the people. And if these two just came together and like said, let's come up with a collaboration line where like you tell your people about this line, like they're probably going to sell 1,000 more shirts, and they're probably going to make a lot more money with a lot less headache. So probably someone in this room is in that space. Look in your network, look in your Rolodex, look in your social feed. And next time you see someone you went to high school or college or whatever with, who's trying to push a fashion line and they've been at it and they've been consistent and they're good about their business, but they just don't have that like thing to push them over the top, you could probably broker a really great partnership with them and do a collaboration just like Beyonce did with Adidas. Right. And again, like we're going to go through each of these. I've worked with each of these companies directly, so I know like we're going to walk through how to work with each of these individually or collectively to build the right merchandise or product system for you as an artist, or for you as a label, or for you as a creator. But in 2022, there's no excuse to not make money, in music with merch. Right. And then the last but not least is brand and sponsored partnerships. And the reason I say it's not the least, because in the last 2.5 years, it's where we've made the most money with the artists and creators we work with by far. We made more money in the last 2.5 years than we probably made in the previous 5. One, by necessity, but two, because like brands, I think, have now finally come around to the idea that independent artists have value. If you have a following and you have people paying attention to you, there's a value that brands are willing to pay for. Right. So artists can receive cash or in-kind services or both from brands in exchange for an endorsement. An endorsement could be something as simple as a post on social media, which a lot of times it is, or could be just like, bought to you by, branded on the content. Brand and partnerships, sponsorships have the most potential for making money. It's limitless. Like, again, it's the one that I wish more artists understood the value of. And obviously, you got to start building your community and your fan base first. But if you understood like how much money there is to be made with brand and sponsor partnerships, you wouldn't stress about like getting fractions from Spotify or, having to do free shows to get your name out there. Because if you do it right, like your shows and your music and all of that is powered by a brand that's giving you a check up front, and you're not paying that back. There's no advances, there's no splits, there's no revenue shares. It's a win-win for the artist. Right. So an example of a brand partnership was a cash payment in exchange for wearing headphone product in a music video. So that's something we've done a couple times. Again, these headphone companies, we realize we're paying these like major athletes and these major stars, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And we're like, well, we don't need hundreds of thousands or millions. If you just gave us, thousands, we could wear it just the same. And it worked for us. So that's just a real life example that we used. Right. And then examples of brand and sponsor partnerships over the years. So, one of my favorites is Adidas and Run DMC from the 80s. Jay-Z and Reebok did one in the 2000s. Obviously, Nipsey, RIP, did one with Puma not too long ago. And then probably the most successful one, the one that kind of like kicked it off and made everyone understand globally how it could work, was Michael Jackson and Pepsi in the 80s with the Thriller campaign. And that, Pepsi really was the engine behind Thriller's success. So there's a history there. Right. And then the keys to success with brand and sponsor partnerships is IP ownership. So owning your IP, owning your music, owning your works, owning your name, understanding non-compete terms. So for example, when we did the deal with the headphone company, we couldn't go and work with another headphone company for a period of time. So obviously like understanding that like there is some give there. And then just clear deliverables, knowing that like it is a transaction. So if someone gives you money and you say you're going to post 3 times, you got to post 3 times. If someone gives you product and they say you got to wear the product, you better wear the product, right? Like you over delivering. My wife's a big pusher of like over delivering. If you over deliver, you're not going to have problems with that relationship long term. Right. And so now the big picture, right? So we've gone through the 6 ways that money can be made. We understand like, obviously you guys, you're not going to be in this 1 hour Zoom and like fully get it all the way. It's not going to be like, all right, I've got it now. I'm going to go make millions of dollars. You do. But I just wanted to have this be a foundation for y'all. I wanted y'all to understand like when we build out this 24/7 platform and we launch these courses and we provide these opportunities, when I look at independent artists, I'm thinking of all of these things activating. I'm thinking like every time I sit and talk to one of you guys or I'm texting or we're DMing, like I'm always wondering like if they understand like the plays that can be made if they just follow these simple steps. So again, I appreciate everybody being a part of this. I'm excited to do this with you guys. This is the first one we've done, so I appreciate it. It's only going to get better. I promise you that. I only get better. But this was just a run through for us. We wanted to go through one of the courses, and this was just one of the chapters in the courses. But the beauty of it is like this is like an overview course. As we drill down, our courses will be like very how-to, very like step by step. This is the play. This is how you do it. This is what you do in this order. Because we understand like I could just give you a book if I wanted to be like, hey, just read this book and you'll know the music business. But I want to give you guys the plays. I want to give you the gems. I want to give you the steps that we've used to be successful, that we've used with other people to be successful, and that hopefully, God willing, you guys use to also be successful. So I know I ran a little over. If we have any questions, you can put it in the Q&A tab and I will gladly answer them. I apologize for going a little over. It's a lot of information and we're just getting started, which is wild. So like, if anybody has any questions, you can use the Q&A tab and let me see. Can I open this up? Or can you put it in the chat? Again, this is new for us. So, or you can raise your hand as well, I think. But yeah, anybody who wants to ask any questions, please feel free to. There's no dumb questions. In fact, you only really learn when you ask the questions. How I learned all of this or most of this is asking questions. I've sat with managers, I've sat with executives, I've sat with artists, I sat with producers. And when I was younger, especially just starting out, I was a sponge. I would simply just ask, like, yo, so when you went on tour, what'd you do? Or, when you released your first project, or when you got your first plaque, or when you won your first Grammy. And I would ask these questions, and I was surprised by how many people didn't have all the answers, or didn't have answers that I thought they would have. And so I realized, like, the higher up I went, only a few people kind of knew the answers, and those were all the people making the money. And that kind of, like, I'd say it weren't a lot of people that looked like us or looked like me who knew the answers. So that's a big reason I wanted to do this. All right. Okay, Frankie D, no question. The browser wasn't launched Zoom initially, but glad I'm here. Thank y'all for doing this. I appreciate y'all. Thank you, Frankie. Frankie, you've been with us for a while, and like, this is our whole MO. I wish I could have done more of this back in the day. But yeah, thank you very much for doing this, because there's a need. I just know, like, my DMs are full of people wanting help, and I don't have the capacity. I don't have the bandwidth. My wife laughs at me when I use that word, but I don't have the bandwidth to answer and sit with everybody and build everybody individually. So we really try to just operationalize and structure what we do. And I want to deliver that to you guys, but that's going to take y'all's input. So, like, feedback is appreciated when you're done with this. Like, you guys have my email, Yudu at 247artist.com, or you can DM me or message me at Yudu Gray Jr. I'll put that in the chat. On all social platforms, and just, like, send me, like, feedback. And, like, I want the criticism too. Like, I appreciate that you guys appreciate we're doing this, but we want to do it right. We want to do you guys right. So, if there's things that you guys want to learn, if there's specific strategies you guys want, if there's specific plays y'all want or need, that's really going to be helpful for us, because we're putting together a full suite of courses and classes and workshops and resources and templates and legal documents and everything for y'all. But I don't just want to, like, throw out everything until I go find it. So, if you guys can definitely reach out any time of day, and we'll get back to you guys. And then hopefully this was helpful. If you registered for this, hopefully you've already registered for the actual course. Again, it's free. You can pre-register. You can go to 247artist. That's 247artists, plural, ARTISTS.com. And then click the learn button, and you can pre-register for any of our courses that are already up on the site. And again, we will be adding new courses every month. So, join the community. Our website's in the middle of getting, like, a revamp, which will be much more interactive and, like, allow you to track stuff and all that. But, thanks for being a part of this. Everybody who's in here, I see a couple people that I know, a bunch that I don't, which is always great. And we'll do more of these, and some of these will be me, but I really am excited to, like, bring in people who are, I think, much smarter than me, right? I'm not a I know it all kind of guy. I'm not I figured it all out. We are surrounded by really, really talented people. And so, like, we will be putting those people on this platform. Like, I want to bring in people from, like, Square and Cash App and PayPal and YouTube, all the platforms and all the services that we use and independent artists use. I want them to come and show you guys, like, this is how I use YouTube analytics to help this person grow their channel. This is how you properly use, like, Facebook ads to run ad campaigns when you're putting your music out. This is how you hyper target or geo target. Like, if you don't know this stuff and you're an independent artist and you're just, like, hoping your music takes off, that's like playing a lottery. And, like, again, you could win the lottery, but I'd rather y'all, like, move with a sense of purpose and, like, just being organized. I just need a little straightening, but I'll be blowing you up. Let me know when you have availability. You've got it. All right, y'all. So again, I ran over by 8 minutes. Now that I've done this once, I know how much time I need for these. If no one else has any questions, I'm gonna put these as done and done. Then we will call it an evening. If you guys on the East Coast like us, have a good evening. If you're anywhere else, West Coast, Midwest, have a good afternoon. And thank you again for being a part of the first 24/7 Artist webinar. I do not like being on camera, so trust me, this was work for me. But if I can do this little bit of work, I'm hoping that somebody gets off of this Zoom and, like, if nothing else, like, If you wrote anything down, like, and you have any questions, just reach out to me directly. I know everybody don't like asking questions like in a public format. Like, reach out directly, but like, take this information and go do something with it. Don't just like coming to the class is the first step. The next step's the most important one. So again, thank you guys for being a part of this. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Follow me on social media. I'm dropping gems on there all day now. And then like follow 24/7 artists, because again, we'll be doing more of these. And we have more really cool events, activations, opportunities, giveaways, partnerships, tours, shows. Like, we've got so much stuff coming that like I want to tell everybody like everything, but just like follow us and like stay tuned, and like I'm excited for y'all. So thanks again, and y'all have a good night.